All right, let's talk about a problem that every single growing business runs into. You know you need new, better equipment to hit that next level, but how do you actually pay for it? Today, we're going to break down the three main ways you can go about it: leasing, financing, or buying outright, and why this is so much more than just a purchase. It's a strategic choice that can literally define your company's future.
You know the feeling, right? It's the classic growth dilemma. You've got to have that new piece of machinery or upgrade your tech or even just get a better copier to keep up. But then you see the price tag and it can be a real showstopper, especially when you need your cash for a million other things like payroll or marketing.
And that's exactly why how you answer this question is so incredibly important. The path you choose here, leasing, taking out a loan, or paying with cash, is going to have ripple effects across your entire business, not just for this quarter, but for years and years to come.
So, first up, let's really frame this problem. We're calling this Section 1 the growth dilemma.
You see, this whole decision really boils down to three key things. First, there's cash flow. How do you get the gear you need without draining the bank account you use for everything else? Second is technology. How do you make sure you don't get stuck with a super expensive paperweight in 3 years? And third, you've got taxes and accounting. How is this choice going to look on your books and affect what you pay in taxes?
Okay, before we get into the nitty-gritty, let's make sure we're all speaking the same language. Time for a little Leasing 101.
It all starts with two key players. First, you've got the lessor. That's the company that actually owns the equipment. Then there's the lessee, and that's you. You're the one paying to use the equipment. Pretty simple, right? The lessor owns it, and the lessee uses it.
Now here's where it gets interesting, because not all leases are the same, not by a long shot. First, you have something called a capital lease. The easiest way to think about this is that it's a lease that acts a whole lot like you bought the thing. From an accounting standpoint, the equipment actually shows up on your company's books as an asset, but also as a liability.
And then you've got the other side of the coin, the operating lease. This is what most of us picture when we hear the word rental. You're just paying to use the equipment for a set amount of time. You're not taking on all the risks of owning it. This is super common for stuff you only need for a little while, or for tech that's going to be outdated in a year or two anyway.
All right, we've got the vocabulary down. Now for the main event, the head-to-head comparison of leasing, getting a loan, or just paying cash.
Let's break this down option by option. If you get a loan, the big pro is, hey, you own the thing from day one. You're building equity. But you'll probably need a down payment, and if it breaks, that's on you. Now, a lease, that's usually all about protecting your cash. Lower monthly payments, no big down payment. The trade-off? You don't own it, and the contracts can be a bit rigid. And cash, well, it's simple. No interest payments. But, and this is a huge but, it ties up a massive amount of money that you could be using to hire people or launch a new product.
So, when you boil it all down, it really comes back to one simple question. What's more important to you right now? If protecting your cash flow is king, so you can pour money into other growth areas, then leasing looks really good. You're paying for the machine as it makes you money. But if your priority is building long-term value and owning your assets, then buying is the clear winner.
Okay, now let's get a little technical for a second, because this is really important. Let's talk about how all this actually shows up in your accounting, because some recent rule changes can completely change how lenders see your company.
So, here's the deal. In the old days, a lot of leases were treated like your monthly rent payment. They were just an expense, and they stayed kind of hidden, off the balance sheet. But now, the game has changed. Under new international rules, pretty much every lease has to be brought out into the open and put on the balance sheet.
So what? Why should you, as a busy business owner, care about some boring accounting rule? Well, the answer is simple. It can totally change how investors, and especially lenders, look at your company's financial health. Here's what happens. When that lease goes on the balance sheet, two things are created out of thin air. First, you get a right-of-use asset, but at the exact same time, you have to add a lease liability, which is basically debt. And that's a big deal. It can instantly make your company look like it has more debt, which changes all sorts of key financial ratios that a bank is definitely going to be looking at.
Okay, so with all of this in mind, the pros, the cons, the accounting stuff, how in the world do you actually make the right call for your business? Don't worry, we've got a 5-step framework to help you think it through.
All right, step 1, look at the equipment itself. Is this thing going to be obsolete in a couple of years? If yes, leaning towards a lease makes a lot of sense. Step 2, be brutally honest about your cash flow. Can you really afford a big down payment right now? Step 3, what's the economy doing? Are interest rates sky high?
Fourth, and this is a big one, talk to your accountant. And finally, step 5, what's the end game here? Are you trying to grow like crazy or build a stable, long-term business? Your answer changes everything.
And that brings up something that's absolute critical. You shouldn't be making this call in a vacuum. This quote from Joe Siriano really hits the nail on the head. Having an advisor who gets the big picture of what you're trying to do, that's priceless. They can make sure your financing strategy actually serves your business strategy.
So I'm going to leave you with one final powerful question to think about. It's a question that really cuts through all the noise and gets to the heart of the matter. At the end of the day, is your goal to own the tools, or is your goal to profit from what those tools do for you? Answering that one question changes this from a simple purchase into a massive strategic decision. Thanks for tuning in to This Explainer.